Let me ask you a question. Have you ever had the feeling that the life you're living doesn't quite feel like yours? Not obviously wrong, not broken, just slightly off, like you've become very good at being someone, but not necessarily yourself. According to Carl Jung, that feeling is not random. It's a signal that something essential about you has been left behind. Jung believed that every human being is born with something like a blueprint, not the one your parents imagined for you, not the one society rewards, not the one fear pushes you toward, a deeper one, a pattern of who you actually are before the world told you who to be. He called the center of that blueprint the self, and he believed that the real task of life is to become it. But here's the problem. Becoming who you are turns out to be incredibly difficult, because from a very early age, you start becoming who you are not, the mask you didn't know you were wearing. As a child, you learn quickly what gets approval, what gets rejected. Be polite, don't be too loud, don't be too emotional, be strong, be useful, be acceptable. So you adapt. You build a version of yourself that fits the world around you. Jung called this the persona, the mask, and the mask works. It helps you belong. It helps you succeed. It helps you survive. But over time, something strange happens. You forget it's a mask. You start to believe this is who you are, but something in you doesn't agree. It shows up as restlessness, as a quiet dissatisfaction, as the feeling that something is missing, even when everything looks fine on the outside. And eventually, the mask begins to crack. Not because something went wrong, but because something deeper is trying to come through. The part of you avoided. This is where the real journey begins. And it begins with something uncomfortable. Jung called it the shadow. The shadow is everything about you that you pushed away. Your anger, if it wasn't allowed. Your sadness, if it made people uncomfortable. Your ambition, if it was called selfish. Your vulnerability, if it was seen as a weakness. All of it, anything that didn't fit. The version of you that was acceptable. And here's the important part. Those parts didn't disappear. They just went underground. From there, they still influence your life. They shape your reactions, your relationships, your decisions, often without you realizing it. But you don't see your shadow directly, at least not at first. You see it in other people, the traits that irritate you the most, the behavior you judge the harshest, the things you say, "I would never be like that." Jung noticed something powerful. What we reject in others often points to something we haven't accepted in ourselves. This is called projection, and it happens to everyone. So the journey requires something difficult. You have to turn inward and say, this too is part of me, not to justify it, not to act it out, but to acknowledge it. This is what Jung called integration. And it's not easy, because it means giving up the idea that you are only the good parts of yourself. But in return, you gain something much more real. You gain wholeness, the missing half of yourself. There's another layer to this, one that Jung described using symbols. He called it the anima and animus. These represent the parts of you, your identity pushed away, qualities you were told didn't belong to you. For some people, it's emotional depth. For others, it's strength, assertiveness, or independence. When these parts aren't developed within you, you start looking for them outside of you. In relationships, in admiration, in attraction, you expect another person to complete what you haven't developed in yourself, and that creates pressure. No relationship can survive. But when you begin to reclaim those parts, something changes. You stop needing others to complete you, and you start meeting them as a whole person. The crisis that changes everything. This journey usually doesn't start because you decided to grow It starts with a disruption, a loss, a failure, a feeling of emptiness, a success that doesn't feel satisfying. Something breaks the illusion that your current life is enough. Jung believed these moments are not accidents. They are invitations. An invitation to go deeper. But most people don't take it. They distract themselves. They adjust the surface. They keep moving because going inward is uncomfortable. It means facing uncertainty, letting go of who you thought you were, sitting with the fact that you don't fully know yourself yet. But if you stay with it, something begins to change, becoming whole. On the other side of that process, you don't become perfect. You become real. You become someone who can feel deeply without being overwhelmed, see your flaws without being defined by them, accept your complexity without hiding from it. Jung called this process individuation, becoming an individual. Not a role, not a mask, not a performance, a whole human being. And you can recognize people who have done this work, not because their lives are easy, but because they are present, grounded, unafraid of themselves. The real question, Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not everyone chooses that path because it has a cost. It requires honesty, patience, and the willingness to question everything you thought you were. But the alternative is quieter and in some ways more dangerous. To spend your entire life becoming someone acceptable and never becoming yourself. So here's the question. What part of you have you been avoiding? Not the most dramatic part, the most consistent one, the one that keeps showing up and getting ignored. That part isn't your weakness. It's the door, and behind it is the version of you that has been waiting this whole time. The blueprint is still there, beneath the expectations, beneath the roles, beneath the mask. The question is not whether you can become who you are. The question is, will you begin?